Hello, and welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens. A couple of weeks ago, I had the former acting administrator of the FAA, Billy Nolan, on, and he is now the chief safety officer for Archer in the world of advanced air mobility. But we were talking in pre-show and on the show during the live stream about the importance of effectively inspiring, nurturing, promoting, encouraging, and guiding the up and coming generation of aspiring young aviation professionals. And that kind of got me to thinking, for those who are already in the early stages of their aviation and aerospace careers, what are they thinking? What's on their mind? How do they feel about the current environment? Aviation workforce climate? What do they recommend to like-minded peers, etc.? So I decided to invite a cross-section of 20-somethings, female, from a variety of backgrounds with various goals. Boy, did I hit the jackpot. After looking at these ladies' backgrounds and early accomplishments, well, let's just say fasten your seatbelts and get ready for an informative, enlightening flight. I have 5 very impressive young ladies with me today, and I am really looking forward to the conversation with them. I'll start out with Ruth-Ann Sutherland. She is a trip service specialist at GrandView Aviation and recently completed her studies at the Community College of Baltimore County to be an air traffic controller. So she's in pursuit of wanting to be up in the tower and controlling airplanes. And then we have Anna Cutter. Anna is a sales and charter coordinator for her father's company, Cutter Aviation. And interestingly enough, Anna has a degree in interior design from the University of Alabama. So we'll have to hear all about how that translates to aviation. That'll be a fun conversation too. And we have Shauntel Clarke. Shauntel is pursuing her master's in aviation operations, aviation management, and sustainability at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. And she has some big plans when she's done. We'll have to hear all about those big plans she has. Then we have Yarisse, or Adorno, Oyola, and I'm just going to call her Yarisse so that I stay out of trouble with messing up her name. She's pursuing her master's in, get this, aviation human factors at the Florida Institute of Technology, and is currently working as a graduate research assistant at the Advancing Technology Interaction and Learning in Aviation Systems, better known as ATLAS. She's also a commercial pilot license, including an AMEL and an ASEL add-ons. That's airplane multi-engine and airplane single engine, for those of you who might not be familiar. Ladies, welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. We're excited.
I'm excited to have you because I think the audience is going to really enjoy hearing what you guys do and your perspective on the industry. And it's funny, in pre-show, you guys were all talking about how you're looking forward to hearing from each other and kind of inspiring each other based on, the types of things that you're accomplishing, which you guys are accomplishing a lot in short order, considering that you're all in the early stages of your careers in aviation and aerospace. So really looking forward to that. Anna, 4 generations, that's that's pretty amazing in itself. Shauntel, you got some big plans and dreams beyond after you get your master's there at Embry-Riddle. Ruth-Ann Sutherland, you're knocking it down with all the things that you're doing with GrandView Aviation and your pursuit in terms of air traffic control. And Yarisse, so glad that you could join us, because you have one of the more interesting areas that you are pursuing at Florida Institute of Technology in terms of human factors and that type of thing. So really, really welcoming that conversation about that. I'm going to start out by kind of just putting it out there with you guys and asking just a very general question. Why aviation? What is it about aviation that has drawn you in and gotten you to this point, and why you are enjoying it and pursuing it and that type of thing? Why aviation? Any of you can go.
For me, it was growing up 4th generation. Aviation, we were always around it. There was not a time that both my parents would always talk about aviation, and my granddaddy was very passionate about flying. We would fly from Phoenix to Sedona in a stagger wing when I was a little kid. And so that's kind of what made me get excited about flying and getting into aviation. So it's my brother and I are fourth generations, and I have twin sisters a year older than me that live in New York, do investment banking, work for Goldman Sachs. So, once you touch aviation, my biggest thing is like you'll get stuck. It's so hard to get out of it because you just become so passionate about it. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got involved.
Yeah, but that's absolutely true because you talk about your sisters, but you went to school and got a degree in interior design. You actually started working in interior design, and look at you now. And by the way, so you have your private, you're working on your instrument, et cetera, and so forth. Four generations is actually pretty impressive. I've known your dad for a while, and when I ran into you guys at NBAA in Las Vegas and met you for the first time and saw him for the first time in a while because of everything, the pandemic, et cetera, and so forth, it was really enlightening to me when he said, "Oh yeah, she's the fourth generation." I just you saw me. I kind of did a double take, and then when you said you majored in interior design, I know exactly what I said after that. I said, "Well, somebody has to design the interior of aircraft too." So anyhow, but tell us about that briefly about you're going after that major, but then kind of coming full circle, and now you're at your dad's company.
Right. So I was always passionate about design growing up. I liked fixing things. I liked architecture. I did a lot of interior architecture. I would, walk around FBOs as a kid and say, Dad, why don't you move this chair? Why don't you change this color? And that's kind of how I really became passionate about interior design. So I majored that at the University of Alabama. I loved it and was really passionate about it. Right after I graduated, I moved to Dallas and I joined this firm. I worked there for a year and a half, and then the pandemic happened. They cut half the designers. And so I went to my dad. I said, they cut half the designers. I was the one that got cut. They're telling me all about how to apply for unemployment, this and that. And
your dad was like, "No way, no cutter is going on unemployment."
He was like, "Absolutely not. Like, you're not doing that." And I was like, "Well, these are the steps they told me to take. Like, I'm just going to do this until I figure out, what firm I want to go to." And so he goes, "Okay, well, why don't you just come work for me? Update your resume. We can get you started with, we can kind of get your foot in the door and see if you're liking it here." And I was like, my biggest thing was like, do I really want to work for my dad? Like, is this something I really want to like get into? So I tried out for a couple weeks and I was like, yeah, I like it. And then
how long ago was that?
That was like probably 3 years ago. Yeah.
That's what I love about aviation.
Right. And then I had an awesome mentor who really brought me under his wing. He was the Piper salesman, Larry Johnson.
Okay.
He retired a couple years ago, but he would be like, "Come with me and let's do this demo with a client." And so, you kind of start getting more involved and you just kind of get stuck with it. And then I just was like so passionate about it. I was like, I can't do anything else. Like, this is, what I wanted to do all along. So
Nice. Ruth-Ann, I met you at a girls' aviation event, and you were involved with me with the show that I did there and everything. And I was pretty impressed with you because you're a go-getter for sure. And then I thought it was kind of neat that you, because we don't always talk about it. We talk about the Embry-Riddles and the UNDs and that type of thing, but we don't always talk about like a 2-year program and things like what you did with the air traffic control. But I'm going to go back to my original question. Why aviation?
Why not aviation? That's the question
answer.
I say. I mean, I don't want to be biased, but I started traveling when I was younger with my mom and my dad at like 5, 6. And then growing up and actually understanding it is like there's a passion when you fly. There's just something about being in the air, being on an aircraft and understanding how it works. So I got curious and be like, I really wonder how these planes are built. how they operate, who operates them, and the longevity of it. So I just started looking into aviation from a young age in Jamaica. That's where I'm from, by the way. And it's just like after Air
No, we would have
Jamaica,
never known.
after Air Jamaica, after I got rid of Air Jamaica, I was just like, it was really sad, but at the same time, it made me push myself more to be more intrigued and inquisitive of what else aviation offers. And here I am, air traffic control graduate on a platform as this. So why not aviation?
Yeah, I think it's really great. It's one of those things that you've really um, kind of dove into. You've got involved with Girls in Aviation and other things related to it. You're working at
Mhm.
GrandView Aviation. Tell us real quickly about what you do specifically at GrandView Aviation. What's that job entail?
So my title at GrandView Aviation is a trip service specialist. We mostly deal with the logistics sides for pilot routing. So say for instance, we have a flight from TPA to APF back to Martin State. We will prepare the trip sheet for the pilots. It's like a flight plan, but telling them the routes and the ETA, inputting fuel if for the various airports and the FBOs, reserving hangar spaces if needed, especially in this winter time. We do have to have our aircraft in the hangars if it's 40 degrees or less. And we also do hotel lodging. We also prepare airline tickets for their pilots in starting the rotation and then also going home. So it's basically having that prep plan for the pilots, the flight plan in an easier access to the area for them. That's what we do.
While we're island hopping, I'm going to go to Shauntel. Shauntel, you're at Embry-Riddle. You're getting your master's degree in aviation management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you mentioned in your background, and then somebody just mentioned it a few minutes ago, the disappointment about Air Jamaica shutting down, and that was some inspiration for you. Was that the catalyst for your interest in becoming involved in aviation?
Yes, it was. So, like Ruth-Ann, when Air Jamaica got shut down, it's like a very beloved tale of our culture. It's been around since 1969, more or less, and we got independence
Yeah,
in
it's one of the
1962.
legacy airlines.
Yeah.
So it's a legacy airline. Like, we have a very beloved affiliation with that airline. So when they shut it down, I was pretty young, and I would ask the adults, "How do you fix it? How do you fix it?" And so they were trying to figure it out, but it just didn't. There was no real answer. So at that time, as a child, it kind of like settled in my brain where I was like, okay, when I become an adult, I'm going to come back and fix this problem. We're going to figure out how do you fix a bad airline. So since that time, it kind of got stuck in my head. And that's pretty much the journey I've been pushing myself towards. How do you become like solution oriented to fix aviation issues and problems and make things better?
Yeah, what a great story though, because you're pursuing education. You got your undergrad degree, and now you're pursuing a master's degree in all the areas that can help you with something like that. But what I'm also impressed with is that you're learning the entire business. So it's not just about the airline side of it, but you're learning about aviation management and even sustainability, which is a big deal these days, and things like that. So and I thought I saw also in your background that you were going to pursue a master's degree on the international side of things, and then you ended up with the aviation management program at Embry-Riddle. Tell us about that. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you were correct. So before COVID started, before 2020, I had actually moved away to Europe because I had found a school there in Germany, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be affiliate, familiarize myself with the area and do a master's in international management, specializing in aviation. And then COVID hit, and COVID. So essentially, I had to pivot. I had to figure out how can I do the dream I've come here so far from home to do, but also at this point, I'm missing home. We haven't been able to travel for at this point like 2 years. So a friend of mine had told me about Embry-Riddle when I did an internship one summer at Fort Lauderdale Airport, International Airport. And he told me he went there And I had it in the back of my mind, but I'd already been accepted to this school in Germany. So I thought that was great, but I already have my school. And so after COVID, I applied to the program, I got accepted, and here we are now.
Absolutely. Yarisse, I got distracted because I was looking at something else. But Yarisse, well, I'll start out with my original question. Why aviation?
Yes, that is a great question. I didn't grow up in aviation, sadly. I wish I would have, but my interest started when my mom took me to NASA for the first time when I was 16, and I was fascinated. Well, who isn't fascinated after going to NASA? But when I came back home, I started researching what kind of careers can I do with something related, and that's when I came across aviation. Specifically, I started with pilot. So I started my bachelor in professional pilot. However, when I took my introduction course to human factors, I was very fascinated with it too. So I ended up doing my bachelor's in human factors, and currently I'm doing a master's in aviation human factors as well.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us about the human factors that we don't hear that every day. It's a very
Yeah.
important aspect of, particularly of the aerospace world and space exploration. So it's really neat to hear that, that you're going all the way with that. Tell us what that is and what you're hoping to do with it.
Yes, absolutely. Human factors is not something that people are familiar with. So, is the field that studies the interaction between humans and the systems within aviation. So, it just focuses on enhancing safety, efficiency, and performance by understanding the human capabilities and human limitations as well. So, we also look at the cognitive aspect, how does human think, and how are those mental processes for the integration of the system. So, we just do recommendations for the science.
So you're doing research, you're a graduate research assistant with the ATLAS program, which is a very long name, Advancing Technology Interaction and Learning in Aviation Systems Lab. What do you guys do?
So over there, we focus to do research to optimize human performance and within the systems. So we focus on commercial aviation, general aviation, military, and one of our big projects is human agent teaming. So how in the future humans are going to interact with autonomous agents. And we are also working in advanced air mobility, specifically urban air mobility, which you guys, I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about the famous air taxis that's going to be going on soon. So we are doing a lot of research on that.
So all of you got your spark and have gotten into different aspects of aviation and all are doing very well with where you are. And for those of you still working on your graduate degrees, you're almost done. So you're ready to move forward with that. And speaking of that, and I put this out to all of you, what do you see in terms of opportunity in the industry now that you're kind of in it or entering it?
I think there's a lot of opportunity getting involved with other organizations, getting really involved in the company you're in. And I think we talked a little bit about like networking, and I think that's really important. Aviation is all about networking. So I just think there's so many organizations that you can, get involved with and see what you like and, join the flight department for NBAA or, a subcommittee of leadership or whatever, you're passionate about within aviation and kind of meet people and say, like, I met you and you're like, you join this podcast. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So I just think being open to ideas is one of the biggest things and being able to pursue, what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yarisse?
Yes, I think there are a lot of opportunities out there, especially there are a lot of growing markets. Talking from my human factors perspective, there's a lot of advanced air mobility and automation systems that are developing currently.
Yeah. Ruth-Ann?
Not to piggyback on what Anna said, but it's actually true. The organizations and the networking is what puts you out there. So going to Women in Aviation conferences, air traffic control aviation conferences, it's basically researching what's available in the industry that allows you to network. brings about aviation more to individuals like us. Because if these organizations or conferences weren't about, we wouldn't know much. So without them, I feel like it brings everybody together. It connects people in areas that you don't even know about. Like you don't have to be in aviation to come into aviation. Everybody has various backgrounds. You just have to come into it and make it yours and don't be shy about it. Actually make it your passion and do something that you're good at.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about networking. Let's talk about mentoring and things like that, and how that plays an important role with what you guys do and these associations that are a big factor, including opportunities for scholarships and things like that. Shauntel?
So actually, the reason I'm here is because of networking. When Vince and I had met at NBAA, it was because I had met someone in the line at Starbucks, and she told me about the cocktail event that's happening the next day. And so being able to go to that event from her network and meet Vince and have like a one-to-one conversation, he invited me here. So, networking is definitely something that happens organically, and it doesn't always have to be this forced interaction. You can genuinely like just connect with somebody based off of what shoe are you wearing and what kind of drink do you like and what are you getting this time. Like it doesn't have to be this very, very complicated thing. I will also say before I moved to the United States, I was already networking with the people at my school. So I was already reaching out to the Office of like Prestigious Awards and Fellowships. I was asking about how do I pay for college. I'm an international student, so there's unique challenges there as well. From that opportunity, I was able to figure out how to become like an international fellow from AAUW, and essentially also find a job on campus that essentially pays for all of my tuition and living expenses.
Well,
so
there you go. One of the things I try to convince our audience or let our audience know about as often as I can, especially those who may not yet be in the industry but are considering it or interested in it or whatever, is it's something that I admire about all of you. You guys are willing to just step forward and introduce yourself to people in the industry, start a conversation, and start learning more about that area or whatever it is that you're interested in. And I think it's important to emphasize that when you have the opportunity to be in the environment, that you take advantage of it. And I'm an old timer, but we like to talk about our industry. So all you got to ask is one question, and then be prepared for a 30-minute conversation. So would you guys all agree with that?
Yes.
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's nodding in agreement. Let me take this conversation back to something along the lines of what we're talking about, and that are the people that have paved the way prior to you. There are women that have worked their way up in this industry, and done incredible things. First Latina pilot for the U.S. Air Force, Olga Custodio. People like Tammy Jo Schultz, and what she accomplished first as a Navy fighter pilot, and then on to flying for Southwest, and then the heroic things she did in terms of saving that flight after an incident and things like that. And I could go on and on. There was the lady at NBAA. She was one of the keynotes on the second day, and I can't believe Malachowski, I think, is her last name.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I think Nicole.
Nicole, that's it. Nicole Malachowski. Amazing, she was the Air Force Thunderbird pilot. I think the first female Air Force Thunderbird pilot. Great story, interesting. Again, I could name the list. There's, Vanessa White at NASA Johnson Space Center, who runs NASA's Johnson Space Center and things like that. When I mention these names and others that are out there, and I'm talking about women, but Anna, you mentioned that you had somebody that inspired you, the guy from Piper and things like that. But just in general, tell me you guys' perspective on what I'm talking about.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead, Shauntel, go ahead.
I was going to share that in my experience so far, since I'm transitioning from my original industry of business, so marketing and operations management, into aviation, I was looking for persons who had my similar background, meaning that they're from the Caribbean, and they've been able to, find their space in the aviation sector, especially the international space. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily women. It was just people who had the same drive to just go out there and just do something. So people like Barrington Irving, people like Christopher Huey, or Chewy as they like to call him. I mean, a Jamaican astronaut, somebody from Miami. These individuals have a similar background as myself, but they've been able to create a space through their connection, through their passion, to share that even though they're from this small place, they have a massive impact. And they're not settling for just being able to just be known or respected or of influence in their island. They want to let people know that they can do big things from a small place. So to me, that's inspiring. Anybody that has that kind of story, that has that passion, is always super inspiring to me, especially, of course, if you have like a similar heritage as myself.
Yeah. Ruth-Ann, you were going to say?
Yes. So for me, the inspiration or the motivation came about with my sister. We had a aerospace college in Kingston, and she was picking up aircraft maintenance engineering. And of course, we all know that aviation is male dominated. So for her to pick that course up, and I was just like, you're female, right? The stigmatism was real, but the fact that she went through with it, she actually came through and she graduated from the course. And I was just like, okay, this is actually happening. So why can't I do something in aviation too? And to come here from Jamaica, like Shauntel said, it gives you that push and that drive to say, regardless of where you're from, how small your country is, you can still make that footprint, that landmark that everybody wants to know that, hey, wow, what's your story? And it amazes people from where you're coming from, because Anna, she's a aviation generation family. Yarisse, she's in aviation human factors, and Shauntel, like Jamaicans here. So it's different. And then to know that you're in organizations like AOPA, ATCA, Women in Aviation, private industries, even GrandView and Qatar, they offer their own private seminars as well for different jets. So it's all about putting yourself out there, regardless of you being nervous, but putting yourself out there, because you never know that one person who takes that interest in you can open so many doors for you. So that's how I feel about it.
Very well said. And I see you nodding in agreement, Anna.
Yeah. So just kind of what she was saying was, even like getting involved with certain organizations, like it can be super awkward going to a happy hour, where it's male dominant or whatever it might be with aviation. A lot of it right now is male dominant, so it can be really intimidating, but kind of going in there, the biggest thing with women in aviation is like the confidence. Like you kind of have to go in there being like, I belong here. This is where I belong. I'm just like them. And so like growing up, this is like a silly story, but like I played baseball with all the boys till I was way too old. I think I was in like 6th grade. And so, I was one of the best on the team, and it was like, oh, but she's a girl, and it was like, okay, play harder on me. It was always like kind of funny, because it was like, I fit right in with them. I put my hair up in a bun and I just, played along with them. So I think a lot of it has to do with confidence. Being uncomfortable is how you grow. Going to these, happy hours or luncheons or, events where it is awkward, it is uncomfortable, but just being yourself and putting yourself out there is how you're going to grow, and that's how you become a leader as well.
Yarisse?
Yes, I have to say that I agree with Anna and Ruth-Ann. Being part of association is very important. It gives you a place where you can put yourself out there, and they provide so much for professional development as well, and networking opportunities. It's just a great opportunity, and most of them there's like free of charge too.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about opportunities, a lot of companies in recent times, I'll say recent years, or even in the last year, most recently, have been paying attention and trying to implement programs and strategies and initiatives, et cetera, to make it more palatable for women to get in this industry and in all aspects of it. Do you ladies see that? Has that affected you personally? Is that something that you think companies, aviation companies and the like are doing, and not just aviation companies, agencies like the FAA, et cetera, are doing a good job of, or an effective job?
Absolutely. I think that I have seen an increase in educational programs targeting women and minorities to inspire STEM careers for sure. And it's not a company, but through Women Aviation, I've been part of those type of programs where we inspire young ladies from the ages of 10 to 17 years old.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I was gonna say on my university campus, one of the reasons why I chose Embry-Riddle, even though I had like another option and I could have, stayed at that school, I chose them because of the community of how they were fostering women. So right now, I think the percentage of our campus is less than 30% women involved in our programs. So while that number seems very low, and it is low, the support that we have on campus through organizations, through faculty, through staff, through just friendships and opportunities to do professional development as women, I find I don't feel like I'm missing out on any opportunities compared to my male counterparts. In some cases, even I get more pushed to the front because you are the only or one of the few women in some of these. Yeah. And you immediately stand out. And I find what I find really encouraging, especially to my master's program or the classes that we have, is that while it is male driven or male dominated in terms of the presence of the persons there, they understand the value that you bring to the classroom with whatever background you have, and everyone's equal to, and they're open to, maybe explaining something a little bit deeper or having a different type of conversation because you don't have that background or you're not quite familiar with certain things. So it becomes like a really intriguing and very like in-depth learning experience every single day.
Anna, you held your own in sports, and so you're able to weather this. But interestingly enough, you had a male mentor that really kind of guided you to where you are so far. So how do you look at that?
So his wife is one of the top ladies and women in aviation. So he actually got me involved with women in aviation as well in Dallas. They would do happy hours and Thanksgivings and, things like that. So I felt like getting into the industry, I was kind of glued to him with, certain events and him being like, come on, you got to do this and that. And I was just kind of like, do I want to do that? Like, that sounds fun, but like, I feel like sometimes with mentors, they need to, push you a little bit, and say, this will be fun. This will be good. Him as a mentor really helped me, kind of get involved with things and push me into other ways. So I was going to say, do you guys have any good mentors in your life in aviation?
I mean, I do. I've the conferences I've been going to, is like every time I go to one, I meet one. So last year was ATCA, and I had the liberty of meeting Linda Frontier or Fortier. It's a very hard last name, but I'm not sure if you guys know her. I met her, and she took an interest in because her son is also an air traffic controller. So she was like, whenever the time comes and you're about to sign on, let me know so I could like help you along the way. This year in Women in Aviation, I've met the assistant manager to the Miami District Air Traffic Control Tower. His name is Freddie Green. He also took an interest in me, and inviting yourself to the happy hour it makes you uncomfortable because you're just like, what am I bringing to the table? Just want to know something here. But you have to be comfortable making uncomfortable decisions in order to be where you want to be. And then I've also met Vincent and Anna Sophie. She's a dispatcher who was an air traffic controller. Because your mentors are the same replica of what you want. They're coming from backgrounds that are not aviation related, and if it is, they've tried it all. So it's not like you have to stick to one specific sector in aviation or division. You can do many other areas in aviation. So that's the thing I love about the mentors and our school system as well. Shauntel just talked about the availability and the resources that they have to encourage us and inform us. In CCBC at Catonsville campus here in Maryland, the aviation faculty is nothing but blessing. It's just a blessing. They would advocate for you, they'll push you, they will drive you. And like you said, they would take an interest in you as a female because you're like, you're somewhat outshining the male one. I'm like, okay, might as well. So you have to take on those opportunities and you have to understand that if your school is giving you the resources to do that, take onto it. Don't just take it lightly because you never know what that pamphlet, what that email could lead you to.
Actually, one of the areas that I was going to go to, and I'm going back to my notes so that I can make sure I stay on target with. I wanted to talk to you about your peers. You guys are already making your inroads in the industry, which is fantastic, and you have your plans and what you're going to do, et cetera. And we're going to talk about that too in a minute. In terms of talking to not only your peers but younger than you, people that are in middle and high school, when you have an opportunity to do that, when you're involved in, a Women in Aviation, Girls in Aviation event or other things similar to that, or you just run into somebody somewhere and they find out that you work in aviation, what kind of conversation and what kind of advice do you guys like to give?
Advice I like to give is starting from the bottom and moving your way up. Like I started.
Say that again. No, I'm just kidding. It's hard to get your generation to understand that is still an essential part of working your way into an industry.
Right. And it's, you apply for a job that you're, the manager for after college and, you might not be ready for that, but, ask them, hey, can I do an internship with the level below and see how I can, prove myself that I can move up in the ladder. And a lot of our workers, you start on the line and, work your way up. We have a bunch of charter coordinators that worked on the line for 4 years and then, asked, hey, I love Qatar. I want to get involved more. Like, what are my next steps? Like, how can I move up and, learn more in the industry? So I think finding also a good company that will allow you to take those steps and kind of see a growth path can definitely be beneficial in like an aviation career.
I think that my advice would be to tell them just to get involved and surround themselves with people who have the same interest in aviation because it's surprising how much you can learn from other people.
Yeah. Shauntel?
I was going to also add, even if whatever your background is, I always say there is space for everyone. I had to get over my own insecurity of coming from my business background and being like, can I offer anything to this industry? Even me doing my master's, I still had like my own insecurities. And so being able to be around spaces and support groups and other individuals at this university, especially when I go back and I talk to younger people or even people in my family that probably never even considered aviation as a career before. I say, if you have XYZ skills, you can do XYZ in aviation. There's a space for you and you can do it.
I like the way you put that. XYZ skills, XYZ in aviation. And it's absolutely true. Whatever your skill set is, I say that all the time, but whatever your skill set is, it's applicable somewhere in aviation. So if you're an interior designer, like I said before, yes, you can design the interior of aircraft. Oh, did we talk about that? Yeah. Anyhow, no, well said. Ruth-Ann, I'm sure you have a comment about this.
Nothing tried, nothing done. So take a chance on yourself. It was so better in Creole, but I have to speak English. So I'm going to continue speaking English. Nothing tried, nothing done. So take a chance on yourself. Get involved, like Yarisse said. Putting yourself in the positions to find those avenues, and don't be afraid to ask questions to mentors you've met. Even if it's just an email, even if you don't reach the point where you're connected on LinkedIn, if you have their email address, don't be afraid to reach out because that is how I got here. I got here through connecting with individuals who've made their mark in the industry, who are seasoned individuals, who respect the fact that you're young and you're trying to learn. So don't be afraid to start from the bottom and then grow your business or grow into the career that you want. And just nothing tried, nothing done. Take a chance on yourself and know that if you didn't take a chance, then you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. So let's as we get to the latter part of this program, one of the things I wanted to hear from each of you is with what you've learned so far and what you're thinking of what you want to do in this industry. And you're no different than anybody else. You're just in an industry that you have a passion for, but people your age are generally trying to figure out, okay, so what am I going to do with this education, or what's going to be my next steps? For you, specific to aviation and what you're trying to pursue, what you're currently pursuing, and what you have in mind pursuing. What are your plans? Where do you think you want to go? What's your next steps in terms of your future in this industry?
I can start, but so like right now, I did a lot of charter sales and aircraft sales. So my next step would be a manager, and then taking over being the head of charter and sales, and then eventually working my way up top with my brother and being, the CEO and letting my dad retire. So I think just pursuing what you like, especially in your aviation career, it's nice because it's in aviation, it's so parallel, you can switch positions. Aviation is a pretty somewhat easy topic to learn. Like all of our charter coordinators, they came from being, working at restaurants, dealing with customers, and then they learned aviation on the side. A lot of our pilots, it's like we say, customer service is number one, and on the side, it's nice that you can fly the plane. So I think it's kind of interesting, kind of having that mindset of being outgoing and, be able to chat with people and kind of work your way up that way. And because I feel like with our company, we're all about customer service and, making sure everyone's happy. Customers are number one. So
you're music to your dad's ears, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can just see him wherever he is right now. He's smiling if he's watching you. It's totally music to his ears. Shauntel, how about you? And Shauntel, you got to tell us like it is, because you really have some plans, and I think it's pretty cool.
All right. So I have two goals, but I'm going to start with the professional one first. So after my program, of course, I want to work in airport operations and management. I love the complexity, but also the structure of working with an airport. I think there's so many different components that you can always just dabble in every day. And so I just love that you can always change your learning, change your environment, even at the same job that you're a part of. So that's something I would like to do in the future. When I am able, though, I would like to start a philanthropic effort back home where we can bring affordable and accessible sustainable aviation fuel to smaller territories like the Caribbean. So that's a more ambitious route, but it is necessary, and it is something that is very much compelling for what the industry is looking for. It's needed.
It is
right?
needed. It is needed back home.
Because SAF is something that is unique because of the benefit of it, but once you begin to move it from where it's been manufactured, you essentially lose the appeal. So for a smaller territory like the Caribbean, there's definitely some unique discussions that need to be had to make that something that is attainable for us. As well as I would love to be able to create a diverse aviation education curriculum for the Caribbean as well. I do think we focus on the sexy parts of aviation, like flight and flight training and being a pilot or a cabin crew. And so when I was younger, I didn't know what aviation operations was or management was, aviation management specifically. And so, for maybe the little girl who's looking on and saying, okay, how do I fix an airline or how do I fix an airport? They would have access to that information much earlier than I did. And I'll be able to advocate for that to happen at this stage in my career.
Ruth-Ann, you were stepping in there, so go ahead.
I had to step in because your ambition to bring that to the Caribbean is outstanding. That is just outstanding, and that's what us Caribbean people have in common, to bring back everything that we've learned abroad in the States back home, because that's where we all started from. The curiosity peaked at a young age. So what you want to do is bring back that to amplify, to make it better, to make it bigger, to make it more recognizable, just as how states are. So for me, it would be, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I got so captivated by her answer. I was I got so,
No,
what
just
was
what your plans are with what you want to do
Okay,
in
so
your
my
career.
plan, after trip service specialist at GrandView Aviation, the private sector of aviation is big. It's small, but it's big because there's this little snippets that you can learn from that you could go to and transfer to your skills, like charter skills, like Anna talked about. But at the same time, the main end goal is an air traffic controller. So the plan is to go ahead and do that exam with FAA, get hired, go into tower or radar. It really doesn't matter which one to me. As long as I'm directing a pilot to land or clear, I'm okay and I'm happy. But at the same time, plan A doesn't always work out in life. So plan B is to be a dispatcher on the side if applicable, because dispatcher and ATC they share similar roles, but it's still in aviation. So you can't limit yourself to one thing. You have to try it all. And there's nothing wrong with trying it all. And on the side, I also launched my own aviation podcast. As you know, you can be helping me with that as my mentor. Because as us as young females, it's a bit challenging to find that avenue of leadership at times because there's so much information out there. It's overloading. It's a lot. You don't know what to go through. You don't know where to go. So having like a podcast that you could just listen to on a drive or on the way home, just emulating other women in the industry, sharing the knowledge that we have, and basically bringing everything to full circle would be better for us. That's how I feel about it because it's if you have so much information out there, where do you start? Why
Yeah.
not start with somebody who's at the age of it, going through it and helping you along the way?
Yarisse, how about you?
For my professional goals, I am currently working towards my ATP license as I aspire to be an airline pilot. Aside from that, I'm also working towards my human factors specialist career. I'm very excited about the growing market of urban mobility and just working with the electric vehicles that are going to be going around. What are the training implications for the pilots that are going to be needed, training the new workforce that is going to be needing and inspiring minorities to bring that into this new industry and just deciding and testing and researching, of course, how the airspace is going to work with all unmanned vehicles and manned vehicles as well.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. You guys are very inspiring. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm thinking about is I'm like, okay, you guys talk about who has inspired you and things like that, but all of you have the wherewithal to be mentors and inspire others. Have you guys thought about that? Have you thought about the fact that you too can encourage others to get into this industry?
To an extent. To an extent, because I don't want to be biased, but like, what do you want to be? A doctor? Okay. Ever tried something in aviation though? Just saying.
Anybody
Just
else?
saying.
Yarisse, you have a big smile on your face, so tell us what you're thinking.
I think that that is a great opportunity to be able to mentor someone. I'm of course open to it, just to see somebody grow from the beginning to their profession. I think that would be very, very inspiring. And just know that you had like a little part in that development. I think that would be great.
How about you, Shauntel?
I've been in education before, so I was able to mentor students in the past. And there's just something so just humbling about being able to be that person for them, but also to see them walk their own path and just kind of like step back and let them do that. So it's the same way, like to be able to do this in aviation would be very, like you consider me as a mentor, okay. I hope like, okay, I have to do what I need to do so you can have something to be mentored by, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's inspiring. You're inspiring them, but they're inspiring you because you need to be what they're inspired by and vice versa.
Yeah. I want to go back to something real quick with you, Yarisse, because I think it was interesting. You actually have two career paths. You're talking about being an airline pilot, but then you've got the human factor side. And what's interesting about human factors, and then you brought up advanced air mobility, which is the talk of the town these days. but the human factor side of all of those is applicable. And then, when I think about things like space exploration, that's a really big thing. When you talk about going to the moon, eventually to Mars, you're talking about being in a spaceship or capsule or whatever for an extended period of time, and things like that. And how does that all come into play? And I don't think people often think about the effects of being in a confined environment for an extended period of time. Outside of the International Space Station, which is recently they had a guy that was in there over a year. They've had, I think, 2 people that have done that have stayed in there for a year. Yeah, it's a fairly good size capsule or space, whatever you want to call it, but it's still kind of confined. But I just find it interesting because I think that there's other aspects of human factor that probably come into play. And I may be talking out of my league here, so school me if you will, but come into play with regard to on the airline commercial flying side of things, et cetera. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. Human factors can be applied to almost everything. So as for in airline context, human factors can be just making operations more efficient, designing cabins, just making the process of the pilots more comfortable within the cabin, and just training also employees and make sure that safety is the number one priority, as it is currently in the United States, of course. And it can also be applied to other areas, like you mentioned, the space area. Human factors is really big in that, because just making sure that your astronauts are comfortable too in those space missions and make sure that everything is as efficient as it needs to be in order to complete the mission.
Yeah. And I want to go back to you real quick before we start to wrap things up. Your thoughts about you being on the mentoring side of things.
Yeah, so there's an organization within NBAA that has a mentorship program. You can either opt in to be a mentoree or a mentor. So it's definitely a really good tool, especially getting involved in aviation, to throw your name in there, and then they'll reach out to you and you'll kind of get like a one-on-one thing. But I just think there's a lot of mentorship programs out there within the aviation industry, and going to trade shows, talking to people, showing your face, and kind of meeting people that way. Go to, don't be afraid to go to happy hours, going to lunch, to dinners, or whatever it might be. So I think it's putting yourself out there is the most important thing to do.
So we're about out of time. And one of the things I like to do is what I call an around the room, to let each of you just kind of say any final thoughts that you have about, the industry, your career, et cetera, so forth. Shauntel, I'm going to start with you.
Final thoughts. I would say trust yourself and trust what you bring to the table, because you never know how whatever you're going to bring is going to change the game. So I would say, like Ruth-Ann said, go, or maybe the movies, whatever the film says, go hard or go home, and we're not going home. So there you go.
Okay. Yarisse?
Yes, I think that aviation is a great workforce and a great industry to work for. And the first step is just to get involved and just to take that first step and start in it, basically. And yes, just make sure that you surround yourself with people who are also have big interest in aviation. Reach out to mentors, and there's a bunch of opportunities out there. The internet is free. Everything's on the internet these days, and there's a bunch of scholarship opportunities too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I can't overemphasize the scholarship opportunities that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't take advantage
Absolutely.
of. And there's a lot of scholarship money that's left on the table because people didn't go for it. My advice to everybody that needs the scholarship money or is interested in it, and all of the associations have some sort of scholarship, some more than others. But some of the associations actually let you apply for more than one, and to also reapply if you didn't get it the first time, come back at them at the next cycle and things like that. I can't overemphasize that, because I've had plenty of scholarship conversations, and it's very disturbing to hear that there's money there and it's just sitting on the table and it's not being taken advantage of. So yeah, that's my little 2 cents with regard to scholarships. And I interrupted you around the room, but I just had to say that. Anna?
My last thoughts would be for anyone looking at, getting more involved in aviation, just figure out what you're passionate about within aviation, and also figure out what you're good at. Once you figure those two things out, there should be nothing that's stopping you. So, find a good mentor and keep working hard. So,
Ruth-Ann, take us home.
Luck is where preparation meets opportunities. That is what luck is for me, where preparation meets opportunities. Put yourself out there, go for those opportunities, network, and be surrounded by people of like-mindedness, because you never know how much you can grow and create your dream come true. That's how I would close it out.
Well, ladies, time flew by pretty quickly, pun intended. But listen, what a great conversation with you guys. And thank you for, opening up and giving your thoughts and your recommendations and sharing your own personal situations about your career paths and your goals and things like that. It was really great to have all of you on. Totally appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks everybody for watching and listening to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. We're really excited about opportunities like this when we can talk to the up and coming generation and the things that they offer to our industry. Obviously, very excited and passionate about the industry. You can get this show on demand on YouTube and Facebook Live. And then also it will be available in another 48 hours as an audio podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. It's been great. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving holiday. And I can't thank you enough for watching and listening. Ladies, I can't thank you enough for being a part of it. Everybody take care, stay safe flying if you're a pilot like me, and have a good one.